Hey guys, so I'm here to talk about episode 8 of Big Brother 23. I'm going to be doing this episode solo, but we're going to get right into it. So we came off of Frenchie's eviction. Thank God. Goodbye, whatever. Don't care. So we already had to deal with Brittini crying and being kind of dramatic for the first week that she was nominated, which I will give her, she wasn't really expecting to be nominated. It kind of came out of nowhere. It was based off a lie. Okay, whatever. But it was just too much. She was becoming oh, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna be a comp beast, I'm gonna prove everyone wrong. And it fell short, whatever. It just felt very weird coming from her, especially. And she's someone I really wanted to root for. And the fact that she is acting this way and acting very I don't want to say entitled, but she's she got nominated and then she's acting like people owe her favors of keeping her safe, or she's I was just nominated, I shouldn't be on the block. It's that's not how this works. I'm sorry, you're not in the position to be making that kind of a deal. I know. And this is the thing that I don't get, especially going into this week. I'm gonna get to the episode, but I need to preface this with all the stuff that Brittany's been doing. She basically was trying to paint herself as the target when she was very clearly the pawn. And I get it in a normal situation. Yeah, I get it. In a normal situation, when you're sitting on the block, you could go home. That's just how the game works. But when you're sitting next to Frenchie, when he literally screwed over and played weird mind games with everyone the first week, you're the safest person almost ever on the block. You had no chance of going home. And the fact that she was one, she took it way worse than Frenchie. And two, she acted like she was going to be sent home. And she was I literally, until Julie said, the voting count for Frenchie, then I could finally relax a little bit. I was what are you doing? And anyway, that's the previous week. So now we're going into this week. Xavier wins HOH. As we saw from the episode, which I didn't catch and neither did Jen, Derek X and Hannah threw it to Xavier. And they were yes, ooh, in the little booths for the HOH. And I was I didn't notice that at first. But it makes sense on why they wouldn't want to win it, because then Brent would be safe. So basically the whole house has been having issues with Brent. Either the women feeling he's coming off weird to them, he feels they're all attracted to them. He's being a little bit misogynistic, just kind of egotistical, narcissistic, kind of just weird vibes. And everyone else has been kind of feeling it. On top of that, he's a big threat. He's a physical threat, and he's not dumb, despite what you may think. Although maybe a little bit delusional. But basically, Xavier's plan going into this week was to nominate Brent with Brittini and make Brent seem like he was the pawn, which this plan, I'm sorry, you can clock me if you want. This plan was the dumbest plan I think I've ever heard. Who in their right mind, even Brent, Brent isn't even dumb, who would be nominated on the block? Someone like Brent, someone who's a man, who's a physical competitor, who would be on the block and think, I'm not the threat, Brittany's up next to me, Brittany's going home. Who, literally even Brent, who wanted Brittany to go home, was this is so obvious that I'm the target. And Xavier thinks it's working only because Brent's so egotistical that he thinks he's staying anyway. So the plan worked, but the plan was dumb, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it worked out, whatever, but it was just kind of weird to people on Twitter and the live feeds were oh my God, no, because if Brent finds out that he's the target, he's gonna
freak out, he's gonna try hard for Veto, they're trying to get him to throw Veto. I'm sorry, in no world would that have worked, ever. Xavier was not even in a position to think that he could do that, but whatever. So basically Xavier has all these nomination talks early on in the week. I mean, the next day after HOH, day of nominations, which I always forget, wildcard and nominations are day after HOH. It's so quick. So you have already no time to talk with people on top of the few hours that they're doing wildcard competition. So basically, he ends up talking with Brent first to make him feel safe, and then right before nominations, Brent comes back up to him and Xavier's like, so like, would you play Veto for me if I picked you? And he was like, if I'm like house guest choice, and he's like, no, like if you're like nominated or whatever. And Brent was like, no, like anytime I'm on the block, I'm going to be, you know, the target. Like there's no way that I'm a pawn. Like I'm not pawn material. So then Xavier basically, the feed's cut and then nominations happen. So obviously Xavier was like, well, whatever. So Brent and Brittany get nominated. Brittany, of course, is already crying, throwing a temper tantrum. Azah, as we saw from this episode, just lost her mind because, I'm sorry, if you're a fan of Team Jokers, like, cool. Team Jokers is the biggest flop this season because it's so disappointing to see someone that I really wanted to do well, Azah, and Derek F, and Brittany, to be honest, of, like, them sitting in their room for the past 3 weeks doing nothing to better their games other than, like, reacting to people making moves around them. Like, they're literally sitting stationary watching things unfold, and they're like, oh my god, why am I nominated? Oh my god, I have no other allies besides Team Jokers. It's like, okay, do something about it. Like, I don't know what you want, like, people to do. Like, Brittany this week was like, well, Xavier made some speech, like, some bullshit speech to make Brent feel safe about, like, Brittany being, like, possibly going after Xavier. Brittany, like, this week was like, I want him to apologize. He made up a bunch of lies about me. Like, and they just don't know how this game works. Like, I'm sorry, like, the fakeness, like, the dramatics, like, that's part of the game. I'm sorry. And, like, the fact that they're playing so passively and yet they want to, like, talk all this, like, game about people making moves. It's like, okay, well, if you don't like the moves that are being made, like, do something about it. Otherwise, like, I don't know what to tell you. So Azah basically offered herself up as a nominee instead of Brittany because she's like, I can't deal with Brittany being nominated. It's like, Brittany was literally the safest pawn. And again, this week, I would say she's one of the safest pawns ever. And I get it. You don't want to be on the block. I understand. It's better to just not be on the block. But in the situation, you really have no sway with anything that's going on with HOH. And, like, the fact that Azah would literally put herself on the line and, like, put herself on the block just to keep Brittany off does not make any sense in my mind. I understand it's a team game. Like, right now, the teams are kind of, like, forming alliances, but the Jokers are literally doing nothing other than, like, slight talks. Like, they've not formed anything. If Azah and Derek F did not have the cookout, they would be in huge trouble going into this week and next week. 100%. They do nothing. Like, recently, they've started to kind of grasp, like, the larger picture. And you know what? Maybe they are out of the loop. Maybe they're not being included in things. But it's like, you have to do something about that. Like, Azah was like, oh, I'm so out of the loop. It's like, are you doing any sort of game talk with people? Are you trying to figure out what's happening? Like, or are you just, like, sitting back, watching stuff happen, and then you're like, wait, I didn't know that was going to happen. It's like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. So, basically, the wildcard competition was the first little bit of drama this week. Brittany basically got targeted by Derek X and Tiffany. They made an agreement before the competition, like, you know, Derek X can't win, so he's going to throw it, but he also can't throw it completely, so he has to help Tiffany win. Because if Derek X wins, Brent is safe, possibly, because of the twist. If Tiffany wins, like, whatever happens, like, she can just make the decision. If Brittany wins, she's safe, and possibly other members of Team Jokers are safe, which means they then have to start nominating people from, you know, their alliances, and then it just gets messy. And because Brittany was already a pawn the previous week, it's easy to just put her up next to Brent, because she's gonna stay. So Brittany ended up, you know, getting targeted. It was very obvious, and to the house especially. Azah did not like it. And I feel like there could have been an easier way to do it, but I guess it didn't really matter. It made Brent feel safer, I guess, whatever. Brittany, of course, you know, and again, I understand, like, you're getting targeted, you don't know what's happening, but, like, you are literally so safe. Like, I don't understand how she can think for a minute she's going home. Like, she is delusional on one spectrum and Brent is delusional on the other spectrum. Like, Brent thinks he's staying and he's going. Brittany thinks she's leaving and she's staying. Like, it's so confusing. So wild card happens. There's some fallout from that. Azah and Tiffany had some disagreements, and they were kind of arguing. Just kind of like, they've always been kind of not really getting each other, because Tiffany plays a very strategic, like, mastermind, like, manipulative, like, lying game. And Azah plays very, like, straight up, like, I don't like this person, I'm going to nominate this person, like, I'm going to stay loyal to my team, like, and it's just two different playing styles. And not to say one is better than the other, but it's like they just don't see eye to eye on how they're playing. So that's causing some issues, but after nominations, Brent continued to honestly take it really well for someone who, and I think the only reason he's taking it well is because he thinks he's staying. Which, again, I don't think is part of, like, the plan. Like, I think he would have thought this anyway if he was on the block anyway. But, I don't know. Maybe not against Whitney. But Azah really wanted, and Brittini, were like, why can't you just put up Whitney and Brent? And Xavier's like, well, I mean, I don't want Whitney to distrust me right now. And if Brent thinks that he's up against you, like, I don't know. It'll be, honestly, I can understand it, but I also don't. So, moving on, we saw a little bit of the showmances. Alyssa and Christian, Hannah and Derek X. Also, Xavier and Whitney kind of flirted on feeds. It wasn't shown on the episode, though. I don't like Sarah. I mean, not Sarah. I don't like Alyssa and Christian, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't mind them. It's just that it seems like feeds, like, want to stick on them anytime that they're together, which is annoying, because I want to see game talk. I don't care about them flirting. Especially, like, I'd rather watch Derek X and Hannah flirt than them, but anyway, that little segment was like, whatever, there's gonna be some showmances. Alyssa was complaining about being targeted, or like being like looked at weird because she hangs out with Christian. And it's like, okay, but you're the only showmance, or like the only people who like cuddle. Her argument was like, other people cuddle, other people hang out. Like, why is it like when I'm with Christian, like people have an issue with it? And it's like, okay, well, Xavier caught you not once, but twice, I believe, in the HOH under the covers kissing. So like, I don't see any other people doing that. So clearly it's something that you want to hide, and clearly it's something that you're like acting like isn't a big deal, but whatever. So then there was some talk with like Brittini, Azah, Derek F about going into next week, and like, you know, obviously the big talk about winning HOH, winning Veto. So spoilers, by the way, for Veto. I will just say it now, and like we'll also talk about it in the Veto ceremony, but in the Veto ceremony episode. But Christian ended up winning the Veto. It was some sort of it was a take on like the Bowl Arena from like season 15, and they've also had it on other seasons. It's the one where you have to spin really fast, like 10 times or whatever, and then you have to do something. I don't know if it was bowling, but it was something along the lines of spinning and then having to do like a puzzle or whatever. Apparently, Brent got sick during the competition, and like it was really hot outside. It seems like that competition always happens on like the worst day, but Christian ended up winning it, which was, you know, best case scenario. Also, funny thing, Derek F told like Alyssa, like after the Veto, like, oh my god, do you think like he's gonna use it on Brittini? And Alyssa was like, oh, I don't know. And then like once he left, he was like, I mean, she was like, why the fuck would he use the Veto on Brittini? Like, the delusion. Like, first off, Brittini didn't even want to be on the block. And then she was like, well, if we're doing this whole plan of like Brent like doesn't know that he's the target, like after Veto, like, can I be pulled off? Why? Like, for a second, take a step back. If you were HOH and you had someone that you nominated or that you're going to nominate telling you like, so you're gonna pull me off like after Veto, right? Who in their right mind would listen to them or take them seriously? Brittini thinks that she is owed safety for some reason, or that she's owed like not being on the block. She's owed the Veto. She literally went up to like Christian and was like, obviously, you know, like if you consider using it on me, like I understand you have to do whatever you have to do to try to get people to use the Veto on you, get them, you know, to stay if you want their vote. But like Brittini and Azah to an extent, and I feel like it's because she like feeds into Brittany's delusion on this, thinks that like this game is so personal, and I think it's rubbed off from Frenchie, They're taking everything so personal. They don't have any sort of like strategic like look on the game. It's all very like emotional, and it's very like they're not thinking like long term. They're not thinking, you know, maybe I am safe, maybe I am a pawn. Like they're not thinking that way. They're like, oh my god, I'm on the block, I'm gonna go home. It's like, okay, you can't think like that. Like you have to put some faith into people, and I understand like you can't trust people, whatever, but like when literally the whole house, except for Brent, is like, Brent's going home and you're still crying. I don't get it. And like, I really want to like Brittany, but this whole like charade of like her crying about being nominated when she's safe, she's literally safe. Azah too, from Team Jokers, like they were all like, oh my god, like I don't want to be the punching bag, like I don't want to be like considered like the pawn group. It's like, what are you guys doing? You guys are in the same room, and they haven't even been have-nots yet. Imagine the dramatics if they were have-nots. Brittany would be losing her shit. Azah would be pissed. I'm sure Derek F would be as well. The fact that they're going to be have-nots next week, just by process of elimination, unless one of them wins HOH. It's very disappointing, and I'm going to be honest. Like, Team Jokers, like, I could tell from the very beginning with Frenchie, like shit was gonna be bad, but I thought like maybe removing Frenchie from the team, I was like, okay, we can move forward from this. And it seems like now it's just like, I don't know, like there's like still some like remnants of Frenchie like lingering in their heads, and like they're acting like this way. It's really weird and very disappointing. However, I would like to say HOH next week, I would love for one of them to win, because I think it would cause a shitstorm, because I don't think anyone would know who they would go after. And I think Brittany, Azah, and Derek F would each have different nominees, if I'm being honest. And like, it would really shake up the house, I think. I don't really want them to win, but like if they did, I'd be like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. Don't see it happening, but who knows. So that's basically it. The veto ceremony hasn't happened. I believe it's happening tomorrow, which would be Monday, but Christian's not going to use it. So Brittany is going to be on the block next to Brent. Brent is going home, most likely with a unanimous vote, unless someone wants to throw another hinky vote. And it should be a good blindside for him. I don't think that he's had any indication that he's going home. He thinks that he's staying. He thinks that he's, you know, he's still thinking like, you know, moving next week. Like the main thing is like him wanting to like take out 2 girls. It was just like, I mean, like I get it. Derek F has been saying the same thing of like, we need to go after girls because this is going to be the 3rd guy, and there's an even number of girls and guys at the beginning of the season. Like we're going to be outnumbered at this point. So we'll see. Veto ceremony episode is going to be on Wednesday, then the eviction episode on Thursday. We'll let you know what happens, but until then, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.